Ciao, my name is Antonius Bui, and I am a polydisciplinary artist and shapeshifter with roots all over the country. I am fabulous, magical, and cunt. I am one of 4 children of Pa and Van Bui. I'm very, very grateful to have been born into a huge Catholic Vietnamese family full of contradictions. Born in Bronx, New York, and I lived there for 14 years before my parents moved the entire family to Houston, Texas. Texas is really complicated. Having my formative years in Houston has greatly informed the way that I myself create space for other queer and trans Asian Pacific Islander Americans with art. What I really, really love about my hand-cut paper process is that everyone has a very, very intimate relationship to paper from the day that they are born. Personally, the greatest inspiration for my hand-cut paper pieces are joss paper, which is traditional funerary paper that many, many Asian cultures burn for their ancestors. And so you'll see joss paper in like an abundance of forms, from dollar bills to replicas of houses to coach purses. And it's really, really incredible to think of the fact that we perpetuate capitalism within the afterlife. And the idea is that you burn what you want to provide for your ancestors. And so in many ways, my hand-cut paper process is paying homage to all the queer and trans ancestors before me. My hand-cut paper process is a very deductive one. I take a singular sheet of paper and I carve at it. And the more I pierce into the surface, the more that is revealed. So for intervention, I am creating 2 separate pieces. One is a shoe installation that invites audience members to contribute their own footwear, and the other one is a mini-series of 3 hand-cut paper scrolls that portray me and 2 of my friends, Aiden and Nu, who are both queer and trans Vietnamese Americans. One of the most exciting aspects of this exhibition was the invitation to explore the permanent collection at the Pacific Asia Museum. When first engaging with the collection, I was very much so drawn to ceramic vessels. But upon further investigation and my site visit, I was so starstruck by the amount of shoes in the collection. And for me, as you may or may not be able to tell, but fashion, adornment, and textiles are really, really, really important to me. The sense of empowerment that I personally get when I'm walking the streets of New York, New Haven, Houston, wherever, in a 5-inch pump. And to see the collection and examine the breadth of materials that these shoes were made from embroidered beads to leather to basketry, you start to imagine who wore these shoes? Were they also refugees? Were they walking towards somewhere else? Where did they want to be? And compared to most objects in the collection, when I first encountered the shoes, there was immediately a sense of embodiment for me. I think that's something that's very, very terrifying about most museum collections. A lot of them feel extremely soulless, stolen, and displaced. But when I encountered the shoes, I saw myself. I saw hints of my ancestors and those who walked before me. We are part of history, and that by adding your own shoes, you are contributing towards this lineage. By asking audience members to take off their shoes upon entering the gallery space, I'm telling you that this space belongs to me. It belongs to other contemporary Asian Pacific Islander American artists. And so often we feel very excluded from these spaces that are apparently made for us to inform us of our own history. But more often than not, that isn't the case. For the hand-cut paper pieces, I was very, very inspired and struck by 2 objects specifically. One is called Flask Fragment. It's speculated to come from the Ming or Yuan dynasty, 14th century. And another piece that really, really struck a chord for me it was simply titled Stoneware Shards, 14th to 16th century from, I believe, Thailand, Vietnam, or Cambodia. And what I really, really love about both of these pieces is their brokenness, the lack of specificity, and the space for speculation. Fragments, shards, remnants really, really touch at how imperfect archives and museums are. To know that these objects once lived their own lives. They were probably used for everyday purposes, rituals, completely outside the realm of consumption by audience members. Being asked to respond to the permanent collection at PAM brought up a lot of complex feelings for me. I personally believe that every single cultural institution needs to evolve, diversify, and really understand what the next chapter of their being will be. On one hand, I am so grateful that 50 years ago, a bunch of white people got together and decided to preserve these objects that I'm learning so much from. Upon entering the space, I do feel a sense of belonging and selfhood. At the same time, the museum can feel extremely orientalist. It can feel like it's fetishizing Asian culture, and it can also feel like it's trapping these objects that have so much more life and breath to them. The fact that us artists have been invited to engage with the past and synthesize a new future, that provides me hope. We have been brought in to speculate what the future of the museum can look like. My hope is that when audience members walk around the intervention exhibition and then enter the permanent collection, they can see how far we've gone, but also recognize the fact that we have so much further to go.